What a hero, Joselu. Unbelievable. Dragging Real Madrid through. Did I mention he played for Newcastle United?
Yes, you did, Olly.
A full 7 goals for us. What a man. And he got the job done, didn't he? Real Madrid are going to be in the Champions League final. But Bayern Munich, they were so close to it, weren't they? They were minutes away from getting through to the final. Earlier on, we were talking about why they didn't quite get there. And actually, we established that Manuel Neuer has a lot to answer for because of his mistake leading up to that first goal for Joselu and Real Madrid. But another thing that is being targeted is that substitution that Thomas Tuchel made, bringing off Harry Kane. A lot of people, I think after the game, the talkSPORT pundits were saying it's one of the worst decisions they've ever seen from a manager. Just given that Harry Kane, one, could have got them back into the game. He's one of the best number 9s in the world, but also his hold-up play and it shifted the way that Bayern were as well.
Plus, it's very important to acknowledge who came on. You know, it's all very well Harry Kane going off, and that sounds like a bad decision, depending on what the replacement is. But when the replacement is Choupo-Moting, I don't know, like, what are you hoping to achieve? Like, a bit more height? I don't know what's in it for you.
I like 2 former Stoke players completely changed that game. It's actually incredible. Let's talk about Thomas Tuchel, though, shall we? Let's hear from him, because he's obviously on his way at the end of the season from the Bayern job. He was asked before the game, this was on TNT Sport, whether we would see him back in England.
This is a tricky road where you lead me here and with your charm, so I rather not answer, but it is no secret that I loved it at Chelsea. I loved it in England, and I loved it in the Premier League. For sure, it was a very, very special time, and I remember it very well.
Now, it sounds like he would be tempted by a move back, given that Liverpool seem to have their man in place in Arne Slot, the only real club you can think about who surely are going to depart with Erik ten Hag this summer, are Manchester United. For you, Rory, would that be the right appointment for Old Trafford?
I don't think so. It's not that I don't rate Thomas Tuchel. I will forever be grateful for what he did at Chelsea. But I think that there are some warning signs. You know, if you look at how long he's spent at every club he's been at, it's getting shorter and shorter. He's falling out with people quicker and quicker. It's going wrong sooner and sooner. And I think going into Manchester United, there isn't really any debate about Thomas Tuchel's managerial ability. He's an excellent manager. He is brilliant at what he does. He finds a way to win. And in terms of a skill set that could be very useful to Manchester United if it was deployed at Old Trafford, no doubt about it. But there are so many more facets to being a good manager these days, particularly at Manchester United. It isn't only about, are you a good manager? It's about how do you manage the situation, the awkward landscape, the egotistical players, the awkward board above, the new regime that's come in. And Thomas Tuchel has proven to us time and time again that he is combustible.
But even if it was such a short-term appointment, when you look at the other managers that Manchester United are currently being linked with, Gareth Southgate or Graham Potter, surely you're taking Tuchel purely because of his experience and also, let's be honest, when you look at his time at Chelsea, where were they? 9th, I think, when he took over. And actually, you're right to say that his skill set really would help at Manchester United, because one of the things he did at Chelsea was really sort out that defence. And that's been the biggest struggle for Man United all season.
Do you know, far be it, I think you and I have worked together and been friends for long enough to know that I'm not a fan of Gareth Southgate in terms of his managerial ability. But you know, if you think about what he would bring to Manchester United, so in terms of footballing managerial acumen, in terms of brilliance from the dugout, in terms of changing the game from a tactical tweak or a positional shift or a substitution or whatever, it's incomparable. Of course, Thomas Tuchel is a better manager than Gareth Southgate. But
let's be fair, his tactical tweak didn't work last night.
No, he got it wrong. That's the other thing. It's very important to acknowledge that he does have it in him to get it wrong as well.
And that is a bit of recency bias, isn't it?
Yes.
You know, we are coming into this off the back of where he hasn't done well as a manager.
Even with that in mind, he's still better than Gareth Southgate.
Exactly,
even with that error in mind, he's still better than Gareth Southgate. Of course he is. But there are, if you think about all of the things that you have to consider when appointing a manager to Manchester United, of course, the major one from a fan's perspective, and you and I are only fans, we're only going to look at it through that lens. You're thinking just employ the best manager. But sometimes what you need, and England have demonstrated this clearly, you need somebody to manage the situation better. You need somebody to make sure that Jadon Sancho is happy at Manchester United and not falling out. You need somebody to make sure that Alejandro Garnacho is happy playing football with a smile on his face, not thinking about leaving the club. Somebody to make sure that Cristiano Ronaldo didn't feel the urge to leave, because whatever you think of Ronaldo, whatever you think he brought to that team, Manchester United could have really done with those goals. They didn't replace him.
Are you saying that Gareth Southgate would be a better appointment for Manchester United than Thomas Tuchel just because of how he would deal with things off the pitch?
No, I don't agree with your... The way that you phrased it is very clever, because it makes me sound insane. What you said is, am I saying that Gareth Southgate is a better appointment than Thomas Tuchel? No, of course I'm not. Because I'm a fan, because I'm looking at it through the lens of football, I'm never going to factor in anything other than, does your team accrue to 3 points on a weekend? That's what I look at. And I think that you're more likely to win the game with Thomas Tuchel in charge than Gareth Southgate. Therefore, Gareth Southgate isn't the best option and Thomas Tuchel is a better manager, if you look at it through the way I look at football. But I think also I'm aware enough to understand that I see football in a very minor, closed-off way. And when you're Sir Jim Ratcliffe, what he doesn't need is another problematic manager. Eric Ten Hag, whether you think he's good or bad, he falls out with people, man. He's falling out with players left, right, centre, and it's falling apart.
Having gone from coming third and winning a trophy,
and Thomas
Tuchel,
Tuchel's track record has taught us that he falls
that
apart as well. There is an argument, and I don't think Gareth Southgate is a good example of this, because I think the chasm between how good a manager Thomas Tuchel is and how good a manager Gareth Southgate is so far apart. But there would be an argument for appointing a manager not as good as Tuchel, but better at all of the other aspects of the game.
Would it not frustrate you though, as a Man United fan, because you'd sit there going, all right, we've got someone who will be better for us potentially long term, purely because we're pretty sure he will stay in this job, and then you look at it and think, yeah, but he's reached it. There's a ceiling on his abilities as a manager.
It's very frustrating for a fan, but not for a board, not for someone on the board, not for shareholders.
And not for Dan Ashworth, who's obviously worked with Gareth Southgate for a long time. Do you think generally as well, though, Rory, that we essentially got a bit of a dearth of managerial talent at the moment?
That's terrible.
When I say that, there's a lot of brilliant managers, but all of them are so settled and set at their clubs.
I don't think there is. I think you can extrapolate from the managerial conversation to the player conversation. I don't think football's in a great space at the moment. I think there are some greats of the game currently plying their trade, but I don't think that the overall standard is particularly high, and I think that's applicable to footballers as well. If you think about football in 2008, like Wayne Rooney wasn't the best player at his club. You had a Chelsea team
that was crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, Wayne Rooney was at a club was at the same club as Cristiano Ronaldo. Carlos Tevez wasn't the best player at his club. You had Manchester United, who had icon after icon in their team. Chelsea had icon after icon in their team. You had an Inter team that were about to win the Champions League a couple of years later. You had a Real Madrid team that were always a threat. You had the best Barcelona team ever. Every single one of those clubs had an elite level manager, and every single one of those clubs, almost per position, had an international standard captain. Apart from the brilliance of City, I don't think anyone's like that anymore. I think that mediocrity has been normalised, so much so that we're saying, and he has had a good season by the standards, but like Kai Havertz is pretty average. Even his numbers are pretty average. Like Kai Havertz isn't anywhere near the standard that Arsenal once had when they had. Kai Havertz is nowhere near as good as Robert Pires, Freddie Ljungberg, Mark Overmars. Like nowhere near.
Ridiculous.
Nowhere near. Yeah. But I think football, the standards are kind of dwindling a touch.
What do you put that down to? I kind of understand your argument here.
The elite. There isn't the elite around anymore. That
we used to have.
You've got to think, Carlo Ancelotti is one of Chelsea's best ever managers. He was Chelsea manager. He was Chelsea manager 14 years ago, and he is still at the very top. There hasn't been, the players that should maybe have come through.
Managers like Jose have dropped off.
They have.
Let's be fair.
They have, but Jose Mourinho would still be in the. I would still have Chelsea appoint Jose Mourinho.
Yeah,
what I'm saying is, I just don't think that the crop that should have been coming through, the next Jose Mourinho, actually never materialised. We're kind of still waiting for the next Jose Mourinho. We're still waiting for the next gen, because obviously Guardiola will go down in history. Klopp is very good, and he's definitely a top 5 manager in this country, but he's not even close to being top 1.
No.
You could argue that Guardiola is. I still think it's Sir Alex Ferguson, but Klopp is a top 5 manager, but not a top manager.
I agree, yeah.
And I think that's applicable to the players at the moment. I don't think the standard of player is there.
Yeah, other than Manchester City.
Man City.
When you look at that team could easily have been amongst those teams that you were talking
agreed,
about.
but that's why they won a treble.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there we go. Exactly. Just going back to Manchester United, because you've said that Thomas Tuchel wouldn't be the right appointment for them. So, who would be? Who would be the right appointment for Manchester United?
I'm going to suggest something.
Go on.
And let's discuss it. Don't just blow it out of the water.
Okay.
Is the answer to Manchester United's next manager?
Yeah.
Should it be Erik ten Hag?
And keep him on and keep going with it.
Yeah.
Why?
Partly because you have no idea who the next manager should be. You know, if there was clearly an heir to the throne, if there was an obvious candidate, then maybe we go, look, it can't be X because it has to be Y, and therefore we move on. Because we're talking about the likes of, like, Gareth Southgate is a genuine contender. And he is so limited. Like, there's no way that Gareth Southgate's a better manager than Erik ten Hag. He might be better.
Do you not think
across the board?
This situation is an absolute mess, Rory? It's a mess. They've conceded more shots than Sheffield United.
I know.
But Sheffield United conceded more goals than any Premier League side in history.
How seriously do you take the injury shout? How important is it? How generous are you to the injuries that they've had?
No, because I just look at Manchester United against Palace, and I know what you mean. It wasn't the strongest United side it could be.
But the under-21 should be winning, as Jamie Carragher in the Telegraph wrote about this. He was like, it doesn't matter what team Man United put out.
Yeah, and at least be playing with a recognisable style, and they don't, and that's the issue for me. There's no long-termism.
But okay, what about if it becomes Ten Hag or Southgate or Potter? Say they're the choices. I think the answer to in that very extreme example.
For me, the answer there's Tuchel. Go for him. And it may blow up.
Tuchel comes with so many problems.
It at least buys you a little bit of time for a better candidate to potentially arise.
We're back to you looking at it through the lens of being a football fan rather than the lens of somebody in a boardroom. Within a boardroom, what you're going to do is you're going to put Tuchel on a massive contract. He's going to get a massive contract. Suddenly, you're going to know. Tuchel could walk in 18 months and you've given him a 4-year contract or a 3-year contract.
Well, give him a short contract then.
But he doesn't take less. He doesn't take less than. He doesn't do it. Suddenly it's not palatable to him. So you're in a situation.
We'll get your new sporting director. Get your own Barada around the negotiating table.
£15 million quid to get rid of him. You bring in someone else. At least with Gareth Southgate or Graham Potter, as average as I think. Now, I don't think it's the right answer. I'm just trying to make.
But they're the two leading candidates.
And you have them there for 3 years.
Yeah.
Gareth Southgate will do the job for 3 years in the way that he's done the England job. He's the only England manager that I can think of that's done the England job longer than he was supposed to, not shorter. He was meant to finish at Qatar, and they've gone, do you know what? It's been so good. Apparently, you can
carry on
because he's done all of the things apart from the football really well. And sometimes, like these.
Is there any world where Gareth Southgate going to Manchester United could be a big success?
No, of course not. But
what's the point in hiring
what it
them?
Might not be. What
but
it might not be is a disaster.
Right, is there anywhere where Thomas Tuchel goes there and they win more trophies than they were expecting in a season? Yes.
And
that's what it's
but
based
it
on.
could blow up and they have to pay him off, and then they're back to
square
square one.
Worth it.
I do, but you're a football fan.
Yeah.
You've got to you're a football fan. I think what Gareth Southgate would bring is stability.
Oh, mate, we should run Man United, honestly. We'd get it right. We would get it right. This is The Social here on talkSPORT 2 with William Hill. Get epic value all season with William Hill. 18 plus, begambleaware.org. Next up, we're going to talk Chelsea and hear a rallying cry from Todd Boehly, who says his plan is coming together nicely at Stamford Bridge. Is it, Todd?